ingenuine, who's happy to let him take on big responsibilities. And the reason I say this is if my ancestors are ones in whom I disagreed upon with policies and such, and I'm looking to change policy, I don't want to connect myself clad in his ceremonial. Oh, like, okay, okay. Is it Chaldea or Chalidia? Hello, coffee cake. Welcome to my cozy, crazy, convicting, and cringy cafe. I'm Mocha, medium roast, barista, and host, and at Cafe Mocha, every ounce of our caffeinated ideas will brew up a latte fun with you all. This was my first time meeting Theodore Ferrum. I had heard him described as a cold and distant man, but I didn't expect him to be so glacial. You have nice wavy hair. That's all I got to say. I waited for him to reply to my greeting as courtesy demanded, but the silence between us was deafening. He only stood there, staring at me, impassive, without even so much as a good morning or nice to meet you, while I had to keep smiling not to lose face. I had better things to do than to engage in a staring contest, and consequently, I swallowed my pride and gestured to one of the chairs around the staff table where a large map of Chaldea had been laid out. I imagine you must have been tired after such a long trip. Please sit down. I thought he was going to stay standing there, but he did finally sit down without another word, while I took a seat not far from him. Like I said in my letter, I'd like for what is my last name? My family, surname, whatever they call it then. Turnfell, and Farum to reconcile. The tensions between our two families have lasted long enough, and I imagine your sudden desire to make peace has nothing to do with your upcoming coronation. The Monteliat are eating out of your hand, but the Volador would never support a woman, which means you very much need us. Coming as he was from a lineage with somewhat a barbaric reputation, he had done a fairly clear analysis of the situation, but I didn't let that stop me. Very much need is a bit strong. Should I remind you that I have the support of cardinals, the people will follow me. That said, I do wish for my coordination to go as smoothly as possible, and the rest of my role as well. I like to avoid bloodshed if at all possible, and I fear that the ancestral enmity between our two families might lead us to just that. Neither you nor I were born when Ferrum's revolt took place. It's up to us to decide if we want to perpetuate this cycle of conflict or if we want to build something new. He took on a thoughtful expression, observed me with renewed interest. It's easy for you to forget. You're on the side of the victors. You haven't been rehashing your resentment for 20 years. Precisely. Wouldn't it be easier for you to forget as well, especially as it's been haunting you for that long? Silenced. Even if I were inclined to consider your offer of a reconciliation, how could I trust you? I won't give you a history lesson, but that revolt didn't happen for nothing. He was following exactly where I was leading, and it took me some effort to repress a smile and keep a business-like countenance. Firstly, I'm not the same person as my father or my grandfather, and it's unfair to distrust me as a result of their actions. And secondly, I'm ready to make a gesture of goodwill if the Ferrum are ready to make one as well. I'm listening. If you openly support my ascent to the throne, I'm ready to return to your family, the Fracastal Citadel, and the lands that go with it. This time, I savored the true surprise in his eyes when I handed him the deed and I had taken the time to prepare. As you know, it was confiscated after the revolt. Since it's located at the strategic crossroads between Turnfell and Monteliet, I thought it'd be a strong gesture to return it to you, but also quite a symbol of trust. After glancing over the signed pledge, Theodore looked at me once more with defiance this time. There's no doubt that my family will appreciate the gesture. I was already basking in my victory when he continued, his voice cold. But as for me, it only make me see that you're the one on those politicians ready to use every dirty trick in the book if it will give you what you want. I had been warned that you're the rightful heir of that snake who used to lead the Montiel, but now I'm seeing it with my own eyes. Oh, so yes, indeed, we will accept your offer and support your coronation, because unlike you, we stick to our word. But you should know you're not fooling me. I'll remain at the palace to make sure you don't stab us in the back as soon as you've achieved your goals. In the end, his analysis of the situation, or indeed of my character, wasn't as clever as I had thought. I was ambitious, and there was no denying that. I wasn't shy about it either, but my desire to make peace was just as sincere. Stay at the castle if you'd wish. Dukes are welcome here at any time, but if you get eaten alive by the court, if you always speak your mind so plainly, my lord. He shrugged condescendingly before getting up. Oh, I'm very capable of defending myself, Majesty. I just choose not to use the same venom as you do. That doesn't mean I don't know how to protect myself from its sting. No one liked being called a snake, but even if it was unpleasant to be treated with such hostility by someone who I had never done anything, I had gotten what I wanted. I didn't wish to risk making him change his mind by starting an argument. Time will tell. I do hope you change your mind about me, but as long as the Farum uphold their end of the bargain, you're free to think whatever you like. Don't say that as if you're doing me a favor, Your Grace. Even empresses don't have dominion over people's thoughts. And in order to keep me away from having the last word of our pointless sparring, he immediately turned on his heel and slammed the door. Furious, I was engaged in deep breathing exercise when Alden walked in. How did things go with Theodore of Farum? I shrugged with a sigh. I suppose it was all right. At least the Farum should support my coronation, and that's all that matters. How about you? Did you manage to convince Leon? Like you said, he won't support us. He thinks, and I quote, "It's a load of nonsense if we let this happen. Next thing we know, all the little ladies in Voldor will be getting ideas. My brother will agree with me on this." I was already quite upset, and I very much wanted to hit something, but instead I settled for fiercely crumpling up an old draft that I was lying about. Knowing the man, I guess this would be coming. Have you at least convinced him not to openly impose the coronation? Yes, and as you suggested, I implied that a civil war wouldn't be good for business and that you were easy to manipulate. Was that enough? Yes and no. The man's smarter than I thought. He took this as an opportunity to claim the position of treasury. What? Treasury? Look at him go. Since he believes you're incompetent, he thinks that the only way for him to ensure that the country stays on the right track is that the Voildor's economic interests are preserved. Upset, I bit my lip while I pondered the implications of such a nomination. I didn't want him to stand in my way at every council meeting, but there was no valid reason for me to refuse him this privilege either. I imagine before asking for that position, he encouraged the current treasurer to retire. That's correct. A pretty house by the sea is waiting for him, and now he can't wait to be gone. I imagine we don't have a choice then. I'll summon Leon tomorrow and pretend we to be a naive, ingenuine, who's happy to let him take on big responsibilities. I sighed heavily, and Alden took a step towards me, his expression worried. Are you sure you'll manage? Manage? No offense meant, Your Grace, but I know you. I fear it will be quite hard for you to play the role of naive and fragile lady in front of him, especially in light of the obvious contempt he's always directing at women. Clearly, this won't be a barrel of fun, but I've spent my entire life pretending to be less dangerous than I am. I should be able to tolerate it just this once. You might have some nasty surprises down the line, however. I trust you then. Wow, that's a lot happening at once. That's a full work day, and that was just the morning. Oof. Your Grace, news of the nomination of the throne has spread quickly. We received a letter addressed to you from the Queen Maiva of Assyria. Gosh, this is great. Okay. My respects, Empress of Chaldea. I wish to write you so I can congratulate you on the recent nomination to the throne, as well as offer my condolences for your father's death. Assuming power is a heavy responsibility, I've been told you are very capable, and I know that Chaldea is in good hands. Chaldea and Isra has always maintained solid diplomatic relations. I hope that we will continue, nay, prosper under your rule. Up until now, the matriarchs have always been opposed to non-commercial negotiations, but your nomination has made them curious. We dare to believe that in your presence, my emissaries and myself will cease to be subjected to the patronizing condescension that your predecessors invariably displayed, and that made my country's past rulers wary of further interactions. Gosh, there's only one God. Your ascension to the throne signals the dawn of a new era for the continent. Therefore, I wish to support you as much as I can. With the matriarch's assent, I have decided to mandate an emissary. I don't even know what that is. Whose role is to be a liaison. Oh, between our two nations. Her name is Asha Isibis. She's an exceptional woman who I hope will be welcomed into your palace as she deserves. With all my sympathy. Why is everyone at my house? I couldn't get a hotel. Okay, that's wonderful news. I'll need as many allies as possible during my role. Indeed, diplomacy is a delicate art, but it's fundamental for Chaldea's prosperity. You'll need to woo the neighboring countries and ensure their goodwill towards us. Okay, but we'll talk about that later. For now, we have a coronation to organize. This coronation seems so far off. Could I just do it tomorrow? The big day had finally come. I guess I can. I guess I can do it tomorrow, huh? The big day had finally come. Impatient and nervous, I paced my bedroom while checking my hair and my outfit for the umpteenth time. Nothing was easy, as per usual. I was supposed to display poise, elegance, and grandeur, all while remaining humble. All right, then. Despite all that, I felt ready and dignified, and I only waited to hear from Alexander, who would escort me, since my father wasn't in a state to do so. You're funny. You're funny. Was not in the state to do so. He's dead. That's the only reason this is happening. You're sick. Time was passing by at an infuriatingly slow pace when finally he knocked and walked into the room. Clad in his ceremonial, in his ceremonial attire. That armor and the pompous cape that went with it didn't suit him, and I suppressed a smile when I saw him squeeze into it. Ready, Your Grace? Almost timidly, I nodded while he politely bowed to me to let me pass in front of him. Then he followed suit respectfully, walking one step behind. Oh gosh. Huh. Oh. And this is why I couldn't really be an empress. I closed my eyes and savored this title that I was hearing for the last time. When the herald would announce me next, I would be Empress of Chaldea. Is it Chaldea or Chaldea? I don't know. I didn't remember having ever seen the throne room this packed. Clearly, when I had been told that the entire castle had gathered there, it hadn't been an exaggeration. To try and hide my nervousness, I walked at a slow pace, my head held high, my eyes leveled at the throne. But my curiosity slowly got the better of me, and while I tried to remain as dignified as I could, I let my gaze wander discreetly in search of familiar faces. Alden, of course, stood right next to my throne, his face impassive, but his eyes bright enough that I can see the pride reflected in them. Robert was there too. My future crown had already held in his hands. He did his best to appear as imposing as his function required him to be. In the noble section, I looked at Leon of Voildor, surrounded by his family, conversing with other nobles who were vaguely familiar to me. To my surprise, I've also spotted Theodore, leaning against a pillar, his gloomy aura seeming to hold people at bay, so that he wasn't drowning in unknown faces. As I passed by her, Marjorie gave me a smile, and I felt her perfume reach me, calming me despite its lounge scent. Finally, the last step stretched before me, and I had suddenly realized that I couldn't hear the crowd's hubble anymore. The only sound was my heart beating in my temples, and I feel that. You ever had that happen to you where you just heart beat so much and it's just like in your brain, in your finger, in your thumb, in your heart, in my heart? Wow. Ceremoniously, I knelt in front of the throne that was still forbidden to me. Soon I had cause to praise whomever had the brilliant idea to place a small cushion under my knees. The blessings were proceeding at an infuriating slow pace. I listened to them with only half an ear, but I still displayed the most serious and focused face to honor the solemnity of the ceremony. The day before, Robert had asked me if I wanted to celebrate tradition by taking the name of one of my predecessors, or if I'd rather stand in my own dynasty. And you know, I gotta keep my name. And the reason I say this is if my ancestors are ones in whom I disagreed upon with policies and such, and I'm looking to change policy, I don't want to connect myself with that same old name. No offense, I do appreciate legacy, but it's like if I want to distinctly do something different and have a different attitude and character than all of my ancestors, it would be confusing and mismatchy to the people to still represent them in some way, and they'll start to question if I'm true in nature or if I'm just gonna do what honors my ancestors. So I understood the importance of traditions, but I was much too proud of who I was to give up my name, my identity. Oh my gosh, I didn't mean it that way. I look like a jerk. I wanted to carry it with pride as long as I would rule. I didn't know the sermon by heart, but I knew it would soon be ending, since the whole place seemed to grow livelier with each passing second. Both the crowd and Robert's voice vibrated with renewed excitement until the key moment came. I closed my eyes and braced myself for the weight of the surprisingly light crown that he delicately placed upon my head. Rise up, Lady of Turnfell, Empress of Chaldea, first of her name, Duchess of Turnfell, chosen by the Lord, our God, through Jesus Christ, blessed by his name. You shall bow no longer from this day and until your death. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, I entrust you with the charge of guiding your subjects and making Chaldea shine bright for decades to come. Slowly I rose and turned around to sit on the throne that had been meant for me. Then I opened my eyes to look at the crowd and suddenly went quiet, and an almost religious silence settled in for a few seconds. Long live Empress Lydia the First. Is that how I say it? I think so. Alexander's words resounded next to me oddly loud, and it shattered this almost dreamlike moment. Cheers arose from all sides in a spectacle chaos. The general enthusiasm was contagious, and I caught myself smiling and waving at the crowd with a bit too much vigor. I'm Empress. I'm Empress. I'm Empress. Alright, well, if you have enjoyed this video as much as I have, please click that like button, leave a comment, and tell me, what do you think is going to be my first challenge as Empress? Is it going to be Theodore, who's going to try to get all over me? Is it going to be that, what's her name, Elisha, that's sent over from one of the ally countries? Do you think it's going to be a Voldor, who is the treasurer that wants to speak down on me because I'm a woman? Which y'all think it's going to be? It might be all of it in the next episode, but I don't know. I just wouldn't be surprised. Anyway, thank you so much, Imperial Grace, for releasing the demo. It is out on Steam right now. If you guys would like to play this awesome Otome game, I think you should. Anyway, I love you, Coffee Cakes. God loves you. God bless you in your timeline. Until next time.